ALLATRA Global Research Center presents the inaugural issue of ALLATRA Natural Science Review. The inaugural issue, Natural Science in an Age of Planetary Change, brings together research and analytical materials on micro and nanoplastics, geodynamics, natural hazards, climate processes, immunology, quantum technologies, artificial intelligence, and the state of the world's oceans.
Atlanta, Georgia, USA, August 17, 2026. ALLATRA Global Research Center, ALLATRA GRC, presents the inaugural issue of ALLATRA Natural Science Review, a new quarterly interdisciplinary publication created to provide systematic coverage of advances in the natural sciences and their significance for public health, climate security, and public policy. The 97-page publication features scientific and analytical articles, expert reviews, and interviews covering topics from micro and nanoplastics in the human body to earthquake mechanisms, ocean heat, immune function, and the growing role of neural networks in research. Science as a foundation for understanding ongoing change. ALLATRA Natural Science Review was created in response to the growing gap between the pace of scientific advancement and its presence in public and institutional discourse. Findings directly relevant to public health, hazard preparedness, and environmental policy often remain within specialized academic circles and rarely reach those who make decisions. The review aims to narrow that gap, to place complex findings in a clear and accurate context without oversimplifying them. It is addressed to researchers, physicians, educators, institutions, decision-makers, and an informed general audience. As Editor-in-Chief John On, Ph.D., MBA, notes, the editorial goal is to make complex science accessible while preserving its depth and to leave room for scientific discussion that stays evidence-based. Editorial Board. The Editor-in-Chief of ALLATRA Natural Science Review is John On, Ph.D., MBA, Chief Scientist, and Chair of ALLATRA Global Research Center. He earned his Ph.D. in Chemical Engineering from the Technical University of Munich, an MS from the University of California, Berkeley, and an MBA from INSEAD. His work applies quantitative methods and computational analysis to geodynamics, seismicity, and natural hazards. The journal's scientific editor is Anastasia Pashagriva, Ph.D., a chemist and interdisciplinary researcher specializing in sustainable technologies, environmental systems, and climate processes. She has worked at the University of Oxford, the Technical University of Munich, DuPont, and Bayer. The editorial board also includes Karolina Hranova, MUDR, Ph.D., a clinical pharmacologist, Jan Kara, Ph.D., senior systems architect and Linux kernel developer, Andrea Leskova, Ph.D., a specialist in landscape science and environmental planning, and Alexander Masny, MSc, a biochemist and bioinformatician. The inaugural issue, From the Prenatal Environment to Global Earth Systems. The issue includes the first environment, microplastics, nanoplastics, pregnancy, and the future of human health. Antonio Ragusa, MD. Dr. Antonio Ragusa is director of the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at Sassuolo Hospital in Italy. He led the first study to report microplastics in human placental tissue. His article examines pregnancy as the earliest stage of human interaction with the environment and reviews evidence of particles in the placenta, amniotic fluid, cord blood, and breast milk. The particles within. A conversation with Jeffrey Long, MD. A physician and radiation oncologist, Dr. Long examines micro and nanoplastics from the perspective of clinical medicine. The article separates established findings from open hypotheses: inflammation, oxidative stress, and interaction with biological barriers. How do micro and nanoplastics affect the brain? New evidence, Jose Antonio Munoz and Anna Cagliar. Dr. Jose Antonio Munoz is a specialist in pediatric neurology and neurodevelopment and head of the Institute for Child Neurodevelopment in Bolivia. Anna Cagliar is a geoecologist and data analyst. The authors examine new evidence on the effects of particles on the nervous system, from young seabirds to human brain tissue. They also discuss neuroinflammation, oxidative stress, and mitochondrial dysfunction, Light from the Crystal's Darkness, When Diamonds Trace Invisible Plastics, Tatiana Karova, M.S. The author trained in nuclear physics at Charles University in Prague. The article brings the issue of nanoplastics into the realm of quantum physics and examines nitrogen vacancy centers in synthetic diamonds as a way to detect particles beyond the reach of conventional optics. The author emphasizes that such a detector remains a research objective rather than a ready-to-use tool. 39 seconds. Insights from the 2026 Venezuela earthquake. John On, Ph.D., MBA, and Andrea Leskova, Ph.D. The authors analyze an unusual seismic sequence in northern Venezuela, where two strong pulses occurred less than 40 seconds apart. The article examines competing interpretations, two separate earthquakes or a single complex rupture, along with stress transfer between fault segments and the aftershock sequence. A separate conclusion. The scale of losses is set not only by magnitude, but by the built environment, ground conditions, and preparedness. The ocean is storing heat. Why 2026 could bring one of the strongest El Niños on record. Anastasia Pashagriva, Ph.D. Dr. Pashagriva analyzes the 2026 El Niño through the Upper Pacific subsurface heat, Kelvin waves, trade winds, and forecast models. Kamchatka's 2025 mega-earthquake in global context in Albridge. The author is a geophysicist with more than 12 years of experience. The editorial team has verified the author's identity and qualifications, while the name and affiliation are withheld for security reasons. The article examines the MW 8.8 Kamchatka earthquake in comparison with the largest megathrust earthquakes of the modern era. Why do plastics easily acquire electrostatic charge, and what does not? Jan Kara, Ph.D. Dr. Kara holds a Ph.D. in discrete models and algorithms and works on Linux kernel development. The article examines the still unresolved question of contact electrification. The author explains mosaic surface charge distributions, mechanochemical bond breaking, and the role of lignin in the natural anti-static properties of wood. The immune system's first teacher, how the thymus shapes health throughout life. Rinat Akhmetsakharov, Indeed, Dr. Akhmetsakharov is a radiologist of the highest qualification category at the National Scientific Center of Traumatology and Orthopedics in Astana. The article focuses on the thymus and current research into its regenerative potential. The integration of neural networks as tools in scientific research. Tali Shkurapi, MAM. The author is an IT specialist and global systems analyst certified in OSINT. The article traces neural networks from Claude Shannon's information theory to AlphaFold 2, GraphCast, and methods for discovering new materials. It asks whether algorithms can identify the variables through which a complex system becomes describable. No blue, no green. An interview with Sylvia Ohl and Liz Taylor. Sylvia Ohl is an oceanographer, a National Geographic explorer-in-residence, and the founder of Mission Blue. Liz Taylor heads Dewar Marine, which develops submersibles for deep-sea exploration. The conversation centers on the ocean as a planetary life support system and on connecting science with practical protection. The issue concludes with a chronicle of the center's scientific work, international conferences, research on micro and nanoplastics, and collaboration on natural hazard management. ALLATRA Natural Science Review invites authors to contribute. The editorial team welcomes new scientific and expert materials. The review is published quarterly in digital format, carries no advertising or sponsored content, and charges authors no submission or publication fees. More detailed information on submission criteria is available here. Proposals and materials may be sent to the editorial team at grc@allatra.org. About ALLATRA Global Research Center. ALLATRA Global Research Center brings together scientists, researchers, and specialists from different countries to study global challenges, including natural disasters, geodynamic changes, micro and nanoplastics, and human rights. The center publishes science-based analyses and recommendations for researchers, policymakers, the media, and the public. For media inquiries, please email us at info@allatra.org.
Media contact. Company, ALLATRA. Contact name, Valeria Smayan. Website, https://allatra.org.